All right, guys, we are back at it with the videos. I know it's been a minute. I sort of apologize for that, but I also needed to make sure that you guys had a solid grasp of all those different court cases, right? You're going to have 15 thrown at you on the actual AP test. So I want to give them to you in chunks so that way, we can digest these and then the last group after that. So we are actually going to culminate all of this in one last court case. But in order to get there, we are going to have to kind of sink our teeth into the meat and potatoes here of Unit 3. So hopefully you remember from the syllabus that there are 5 units in AP Government, and we're about halfway through the 3rd one. So we are on track to have all of our stuff done by March-ish, and then we'll have about a month to review before the AP test. So I want to go over a few things with you guys here. Each of these different things here in this list are going to be a different video, so that's kind of how this is going to be structured. All of these things that we're going to talk about are kind of the lifeblood of government. So these are the things that make government work. And as you can see here, we've got linkage institutions, political parties, elections, campaign finance, interest groups, mass media, and the bureaucracy. Now, political parties, mass media, interest groups, all that stuff is going to fall under the category of linkage institutions. And that's going to be the first thing that we really dive into here. So linkage institutions are essentially the glue that holds the government together. And you've got a definition here for your notes. A linkage institution is anything that provides a link between the branches of government and also between the government and the people. So linkage institutions are incredibly important, as you can imagine, because the government would not work if it can't interact with itself and it can't interact with the people, right? And all of those interactions are done through the lenses of these 4 linkage institutions. So we've got political parties, we've got the mass media, we've got the actual members of government, and lastly, interest groups. So to kind of give you a cursory look over these things before we go into detail, political parties, I feel like you're fairly familiar with, but I want to talk specifically about what political parties do behind the scenes that isn't as publicized and definitely is not as glamorous as some of the things that we've already covered in this class. After that, the mass media, this is going to refer to basically any way of communicating between both people and the government, right? That's why it's a linkage institution. People figure out what the government is doing through the media, right? So therefore, it's going to be a linkage institution. The actual members of government are also going to be a linkage institution. You can always, schedule a meeting with a federal, state, or local official. Granted, it's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more prep to meet with a federal official, but you can definitely meet with these guys and you can share your opinions and your concerns. If you want a specific bill passed, you can, go meet with Bruce Westerman or whoever it is that you would like to sponsor the bill and go over the merits of it, right? That's all legal and reasonable for you to do, because we're able to directly interact with government by talking with our local, state, and federal officials. Those guys are a linkage institution. And then lastly, we've got interest groups. We haven't talked about these yet. Interest groups are super interesting, though. Interest groups are factions of different groups of people who will get together and try and influence the government and basically what they do. That's kind of the short version of that. And obviously we'll go more into detail in a future video. So let's talk political parties here. They're first up on the docket. So your definition is going to be in bold and underlined terms. Everything that's not bold and underlined is just kind of some extra information for you. That's going to actually be the case for the entire unit that we're on here. So anytime you see bold and underlined print, that means it's either really important and you need to know it, or it's a definition and you need to know it. Some of these slides are going to have a lot of bolded and non-underlined information, all of that is extra. So if you are interested in learning more, I have those here. I thought I'd structure it a little bit differently because, right, we've got the ability to, have our class done through video now. And you're able to pause the video and read some extra information, and that'll hopefully answer some of the questions that you might normally have. So I'm trying to give you guys a little bit more to bite off at a time while still keeping it structured and still relatively simplified. So political parties are organized groups of people who work to have candidates elected to public office. So that is your definition of a political party. And let's talk about how they actually do those things. So political parties have four main activities that they spend their time and money and resources and effort on. So first and foremost, and this is, I think, the thing that goes most unnoticed, and that is the actual recruitment of candidates for office. I think, especially in the light of Donald Trump running for office and winning the presidency, having no prior political experience, that has kind of given the impression to a lot of Americans that if you want to run for office, all you have to do is, be really famous and put your name out there and say your ideas and maybe it'll work. But the reality is that is not how things work most of the time. Most of the time, and this is especially the case at the state level and the local level, candidates are not necessarily people who want to expand their influence, and maybe they have all these great ideas and they just want to throw their name into the ring and see what happens. Political parties spend their time figuring out who would be a good fit. They reach out to those folks, they recruit them, they train them. Hey, here's how to raise money. Here's how to get your message across, that kind of thing. This is the main function of political parties, and it goes so unnoticed and so undervalued. So if you want to run for office one day, get involved with your political party, right? Get involved with, and I'm going to use Arkansas as an example, get involved with the Arkansas Democratic Party or Republican Party. Go to some of their meetings, hang out with these guys. They're going to see what you bring to the table, and they can, make some suggestions on what you can do to really get the ball rolling. Now, once the candidates have actually been trained up and they're ready to go, the first step is to create platforms and educate people about them. So a platform is a list of objectives that the candidate wants to get done if they are elected. So, for example, I'll take Joe Biden as my example here. He, as I'm filming this, it's his inauguration day. So Joe Biden has a platform. He says, I want to get this, and this done, right? I want to join the Paris Climate Accords. I want to raise the minimum wage to $15. I want to cancel $10,000 of student loans per person. I want to give out $1,400 to all independent adults for coronavirus relief. All of these different things that he wants to get done make up what is called a platform. So a platform is a list of things that the candidate wants to get done. And for the record, each individual thing is called a plank. So many planks make up a platform. In construction, right? Same thing in politics. So one plank might be raising the minimum wage to $15. The overall platform is when you add all of those planks together. So we've got platforms that we've created. Now we need to educate the voters. We need to teach them about our platform. They're not going to vote for you if they don't know what you stand for or who you are, right? So you're going to spend time either creating, mailers or Facebook posts or video, whatever your strategy might be. You're going to spend time teaching the voters about, first and foremost, who you are and what you stand for, and then your platform, what you want to get done. Political parties are going to spend their time and effort and resources helping candidates create successful platforms. And they're going to, especially when it comes to money, they're going to spend their resources educating the voters about their candidates. Lastly, and again, this is one of those things that goes really undervalued, really underappreciated that political parties do. They're going to spend time registering people to vote. When I worked in politics before I got this job, right, teaching you guys, I was involved in a ridiculous amount of voter registration. That was my bread and butter. I would just be going around, maybe I'll go to Iowa or Ohio or something like, some important state before their primary, and I would register as many people as I could. Now, the key term here is like-minded. So demographically speaking, right, certain people are more likely to vote for one party or the other. So I would be sent out into neighborhoods which are more likely to vote for my party of choice, and I would register as many of those people as I could. And while I'm there, then we can talk about education, right? But first and foremost, we're registering people to vote, because if you're not registered to vote, you can't help us, right? So we're registering folks to vote, we're educating them on these platforms, not necessarily at the same time. Raising money for candidates comes third. So you've got your platform, your voters are educated, now you raise money to get your word out to folks that are on the fence. So raising money looks different depending on your tactics, right? Sometimes you're gonna, call folks, you've got a call list, and hey, can I have X amount of money, so on. You're gonna raise some. People want to be involved in politics, but they don't always know how they can help. Giving money to candidates that you like is a great way to be involved in the political process. Political parties come in by giving lists of past donors to the party and giving those to candidates and their volunteers, so that way they can call those people up and say, hey, can I have some money? Here's what I stand for. This is what I want to do. Can you help me out? And lastly, political parties serve as a watchdog when they are in the minority. So if the other party, and I'm speaking in terms of Democrats and Republicans, if the other party is in charge, the minority party is going to call them out on any BS that they might be up to. So these guys have an important duty, honestly, to the American people, not even just their base, not only just their loyal followers. They have a duty to say, hey, these guys are doing something wrong, and you need to know about it. So going into the specifics here of those four things. So recruiting and nominating candidates. This is going to happen at the national level, the state level, and the local level, more often at the local level. So the parties are going to provide training for people who want to run for office, and even those who don't want to run for office, but the party thinks would be a great fit. They're going to reach out to those folks, and they're going to say, hey, you should run for office. Then those people are going to run in primaries, which, we kind of went through at the beginning of this course. Those folks are going to run in primaries, and the winner will receive the official nomination from the party. So the party kind of guides these folks all the way through. Lastly, at the state convention, the person who wins the primary will officially become the candidate for office, and they will run against the other parties to try and secure the seat. Educating and mobilizing folks. So there's a term here that I really need you to know, and that term is grassroots. So organizing the party at grassroots or local levels. Grassroots simply means local. At maybe a coffee shop or something like that, a candidate could hang out and you could talk to actual citizens, find out what they care about, all that good stuff. That is working at the grassroots. Second, they're going to inform folks through advertisement. Now, when I say online here, right, it says television, newspapers, online. When I say online, in today's day and age, really what I'm talking about is social media. And they're going to conduct what are called GOTV drives. This was my bread and butter, like I was saying earlier. Get out the vote, meaning they're going to send volunteers out to neighborhoods that are more likely to vote for them than the other guy and get as many people registered as possible. Then, before the actual election, maybe the day or two before, we're going to go out to those same spots and we're going to say, hey, you should vote. Here's your polling location. Here are the candidates. This guy's better than that one. Go do it. So, I'm sorry. To go more into detail on the party platform. So the actual party is going to have a platform of its own. So each candidate is going to have a platform, but it's going to look really similar to the platform of the party that candidate is running to represent. So the Democratic Party, for example, officially stands for an end to climate change through various means of providing businesses incentives and things like that, raising the minimum wage, welfare, all that kind of stuff. Those are things the Democratic Party as a whole believes in. And when they're recruiting candidates for office, they're going to teach them about these ideas, and those candidates will likely put them on their own individual platforms. Moving on to number 3. So raising money to help candidates win. Political parties are going to run off of donations. Political parties are not businesses, right? They need to raise money somehow. So you're going to reach out to individuals, definitely wealthy individuals. In addition to that, you're going to reach out to groups that support your cause, such as, for example, for the Democratic Party, Moms Demand Action is a group which focuses on gun control. You're going to reach out to those guys and say, hey, can I get some money? Organizations. So there are businesses which would prefer one candidate over the other. You can reach out to those guys and get their money. Campaigns are super expensive. If you don't raise money, you're going to lose. Almost always, the campaign that raises the most money wins the election. And lastly, serving as a watchdog over the party in power. So these guys are going to try and see if the other party makes mistakes or they abuse their power, and then they're going to call out that party. The voters are going to, become unhappy with the party in charge, and they'll likely vote for you, right, to take their position. This also provides accountability. So if, for example, the Republicans know that the Democrats are watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake, they're going to act responsibly. Then the Democrats have nothing to complain about. And these terms that I'm throwing around, majority and minority, what I'm talking about is the party that either controls Congress or does not control Congress. So the majority party has a majority, more than half, right, in a given chamber in the House or in the Senate. The minority party would be the one that does not have more than half of the people in either the House or the Senate. Now, when it comes to the party structure, the president is considered the party leader. So, for example, Joe Biden just took office today. Joe Biden is considered the leader of the Democratic Party. What Joe Biden wants is generally what the party wants because he is the leader of the party. The opposition oftentimes does not have a strong leader who can kind of guide them in their response to the president. Now, in the current political environment, Mitch McConnell is a very strong opposition leader. So currently, the Republicans actually do have a voice that can kind of guide them against President Biden. All right, got to skip a few things. I apologize for that. Okay. Third parties is the last thing I want to talk about here. So there are more parties than just the Republican and the Democrat Party. So minority parties, such as the Green Party, the Constitution Party, maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. these guys definitely exist, but they have a very hard time getting elected to office. And we'll talk about that here in a second. So here are some third parties that are actively involved in the United States. You guys can pause this and look over them if you want to. I'm sure a lot of you are a fan of the marijuana party. You can probably imagine what they want. But these third parties, like I said, they have a hard time getting elected to office. And the thing I need you to know is why. So, thing number one, third parties fail because of success, which is kind of contradictory, but I want you guys to really think about this. If a third party has a really good idea, but they don't have a ton of support, right? For example, it's tough to justify voting for the Green Party when you know the Republican or the Democrat Party is probably going to win. Therefore, the Green Party is probably not going to actually get elected. But if they have a great idea, the Republicans or the Democrats would steal that idea. Then, not only does the Green Party lose popularity, but all of those people would then vote for either the Republicans or the Democrats, whoever stole that idea. So third parties fail if they are successful, which is really sad, actually. On top of that, we've got single member districts. So only one person can win the election. You can't have, 5 people representing, Pine Bluff, for example. You can only have one. So it's probably going to come down to the Republicans or the Democrats. If you can only vote for one, you're probably going to vote for one of the two parties that has the best chance to win. So because these third parties don't really have a path to success, it's unlikely that they're ever going to be able to defeat either the Democrats or both the Democrats and the Republicans. Most people will vote for either the Republicans or the Democrats, even if they don't particularly like either of them, simply because those are the two parties that have a chance. Oh, and a slight disclaimer, I put GOP here. GOP stands for Grand Old Party, and that's what the Republicans kind of call themselves colloquially. So the GOP is the Republicans. Democrats and Republicans also dislike third parties. That's something they can actually agree on, because a third party does what is called splitting the vote. So I'm gonna kind of explain this way. So the Green Party, who I've been using as an example here, the Green Party is very similar to the Democratic Party. They have a lot of the same things on their platform, but the Green Party is very focused on the environment. So people who vote for the Green Party, if the Green Party did not exist, would vote for the Democrats because they're very similar. So if a Green Party candidate is super successful, they're popular, and they get more votes than normal, that is going to be seemingly taking away likely Democratic voters from the Democratic Party. So they're not going to like the Green Party very much. The same case goes for the Libertarian Party and the Republicans. They're fairly similar. So if a Libertarian candidate is very successful, is very popular, likely Republican voters are kind of taken away by that Libertarian. So third parties, quote unquote, split the vote between the major party and the minor party. And then a couple types of political parties, third parties here. So ideological parties are generally the most common. So these are going to be parties that are based solely around a specific set of beliefs. So communists would believe that the government should control almost every aspect of life. Libertarians, on the other hand, believe the opposite. They believe the government should completely stay out of everything. Now, splinter parties are specifically parties that are formed around one person. So if there's one guy who's super popular, that person could run as a third party candidate, and people who just happen to like that guy would vote for him. Donald Trump yesterday actually talked about how he would potentially start his own political party. He could run in 2024 under what he would call the Patriot Party. He has a legitimate chance because he is a very strong personality with a lot of support. Single issue parties, these are the types of guys who they fail if they have a great idea, because they're very focused on one specific thing. So for example, the Right to Life Party is specifically focused on making abortion completely illegal under all circumstances. So anyone who feels incredibly strongly about that would potentially vote for the Right to Life Party. Now, the Prohibition Party would be another single issue party. These guys are focused on making alcohol illegal. That's their one thing that they do. And people who feel very strongly about that would potentially vote for them. And then lastly, we have a protest party. These guys are not very popular, but generally speaking, protest parties are just parties that kind of emerge when the economy is really bad to say, screw the government, we need to, take it over and completely redo it. So that would be a protest party. Again, those guys aren't particularly common. So these four types, right? Ideological, splinter, single issue, and protest. Those are your four types. So in a second, we're going to move on to the elections, but do me a favor, fill out that Google Doc attached to this video, and we'll touch on this in the next one. Appreciate you guys.